بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of outlines of transcendent philosophy. Today I had a work in Manchester, so I am now connecting from house of one of the brothers here. And inshallah we are going to have a brief session. The topic today is haraka, movement. This is the lesson 6 of the book. There are many questions surrounding the topic of haraka, or movement or motion. And we need to discuss about haraka, we need to talk about time, we need to talk about kam muttasil, about those quantities which have continuity and those of them which are stable or they are expiring. So there are lots of things that we need to discuss, inshallah. Of course, some of them are just reminders of what we discussed in Bidayatul Hikmah and Falsafiyya Muqaddamati by Mr. Ubudiyat himself. Sheikh Ubudiyat says that we also, for the most part, discuss according to the ideas of philosophers before Mulla Sadra, the main, kind of philosophical ground. And when Mulla Sadra has something different, we will also mention. So let us start with few concepts. One is emtidad. Emtidad means continuity. So there are quantities which are muttasil, which have continuity, they are connected, and there are quantities which are disconnected. We call them kam muttasil versus kam munfasil. Kam munfasil, which is not with continuity, is about a'dad, numbers. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There is no connection between 2 and 3 or 3 and 4. It's disconnected. But if you, for example, consider line, khat is kam muttasil. It's a quantity which comes with continuity. You can consider endless parts in kam muttasil. For example, even if you have a small, very short line, you can have lots of points which can be considered to divide or to cut the line. Therefore, philosophers say kam muttasil or emtidad is something which can be divided endless times. Or you can say it has infinite potential parts. How many points you can find in a line? Endless points. But these points are potential, because if we have actual cuts, then we don't have one line. It becomes, several smaller lines. Line is continuous, but you can consider endless parts, endless points. Or if you have if you have a surface, so here you can have lots of lines to cut the surface, but These are all potential. So the definition that they have for امتداد is that it is essentially accepting endless potential divisions or cutting. Okay? So by itself, ذاتاً, because other things may also be possible to be divided, but because of كم متصل. For example, if you have I don't know, a book, a paper, anything, some wood, we can consider them also to be divided endless times, but this is not because of their substance or because of their cave quality, etc. It's because of their kam. So امتداد or kam متصل is what accepts division ذاتاً, primarily, essentially, by its very own essence. How many times? Endless times. Do these parts exist really outside? No, it's just farzi. It's by our supposition. And they are not real, they are بالقوة, they are potential. So, when we say these are parts that we can consider, for example, in a line, we can consider different points. In a surface, we can consider different lines. In something which has, kind of three-dimensional shape, you can consider different surfaces. These potential parts don't exist, as we said, because if they exist, then that continuity is finished. Then we have a smaller, continuities. So they are not real parts. When we call here juz and kul, the part and the whole, indeed it is like ijmal and tafsil, means something is, look at it as a whole or in a detailed way. But it's one thing, not we have really combination of different parts. And every part is the same as the امتداد or continuity. For example, for line, if you consider 1 centimeter, 1 millimeter, again it's a line. Okay, even if you cut it many times, again it's a line. Or if you have surface, it's again a surface, if you cut it into smaller ones. Then the next point is that sometimes these things which have continuity can be expiring. If you remember, we used to call this كم متصل غیر قار الذات, opposite to قار الذات, from قرار. Sometimes by essence this امتداد, this كم متصل, expires. It means that every part of it is preceded by a part which has gone and a part which has not come. Okay? So it's not possible to have all the parts at the same time. Qarruzat is stable. You can have all the parts. For example, if you have a line of 1 meter or 1 kilometer or 1,000 kilometers, all the parts exist at the same time. There is qarar, there is a stability. But in غير قار الذات, there's a gradual process. Always we have something which has gone and something which has not yet come and a present one. Okay, so these are two different types of امتداد or كم متصل. Also, please remember that in, for example, كم غیر قارزات, those which are gradual and expire, any part that you consider, for example, if you divide into 10 times, less, or 100 times, or 1000 times, each part is also gradual. You can consider a moment on, but on is end of that continuity. On is like a point in line. On, like its point in line, is not part of the line, is taraf, is limit. That is where line ends or line begins. Moment or on is where time begins or ends. It's not by itself time. Time is always gradual. And if you add millions of moments or millions of points, they will never become kam muttasil. They will never have continuity. Million in zero is still zero. Even if you have endless points, it will not make even 1 inch of line. If you have millions of moments on, philosophically on, means not gradual, not, for example, short period of time. No, absolutely, if it is moment, even if you have millions of these moments, they don't make even 1 minute. So this is also to remember, because every part of kam muttasil has to have the continuity. Then there's a discussion about zaman, time. When you have something غیر قارزات or sayyal or gradual, like motion, time is the quantity of that gradual thing. For example, if something is moving from one point to another point, maybe this movement has taken 1 hour. This 1 hour is the specific measure or size or quantity of that harakah. So, امتداد sayyal has continuity, but it is vague. How long? How much? We don't know. Zaman is the specific amount of that continuity. Okay, so we don't have two things. One is امتداد sayyal, a gradual continuity, and another thing, zaman. No, zaman is the specific quantity of, or you can say ta'ayyun, of that امتداد sayyal. Something that can be measured. Sheikh Ubudiyat says, مفهوم زمان بر این واقعیت. So they refer to the same واقعیت, same reality. They apply to the same reality, but the considerations are different. مفهوم زمان بر این واقعیت از آن جهت که تعین پذیر است قابل حمل است. So time is applied to the same reality insofar as it can be specified. و مفهوم امتداد از آن جهت که تعینش مورد توجه نیست. امتداد is applied to the same reality when we don't have concern about its specific measure or size. So they apply to the same reality. Based on this, time is a whole, a whole which has continuity. به بیان دقیق تر، زمان یک کل ممتد است. Is a whole which is extended, which has continuity، که لحظات و آنات مقاطع فرضی آنند. So the moments that we consider are limits of that are, like cutting edges of time, but farzi, by our assumption. They don't really exist, because if they really existed, we didn't have one time. We had then several smaller times. Then there is a classification here. Things compared to time can be one of the two types, if you consider relation between things and time. Some are what we call farazamani, and some are zamani or مرتبط با زمان. What does it mean? It means that some of the things are beyond time limits, beyond time framework. They don't have time, so time has nothing to do with them. So if something was in the past, for them there is no past. If something comes in future, for them there is no future, because they have no time. They are outside time framework. So everything for them is just a being, a reality. Philosophers say we have two kinds of beings which are beyond and above time. One is wajibul wujud bidhat, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is necessary by himself, not wajibul wujud bil ghayr, wajibul bidhat. Second, mujarradat tam, those things which are absolutely immaterial. There is no madde, there is no potentiality, no matter, philosophical matter I mean, which has potentiality. They are absolutely actual, completely actual. There is no waiting condition, there is no potentiality in them. So wajibul wujud bizat and mujarradat tam, they have no time. For them there is nothing past or present or future. Everything is the same. I read this line because it's very important. I have already explained, but it's important for you to be reminded again. اشیایی که در گذشته موجود بوده اند برای فرازمان گذشته نیستند، بلکه برای او فقط موجودند. Those things that existed in the past for something which is beyond time, they are not in the past, they are just existing. همچنین اشیایی که در حال یا در آینده موجودند برای او حال یا آینده نیستند، بلکه فقط موجودند. Also those things which are existing in the present time or future time for something which is beyond time, they are not in present or future, they are just there. So past, present, future are the same. فیلسوفان مجرد تام یعنی سلسله عقول و واجب بالذات را در این گروه جای میدن. So philosophers include واجب بالذات, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and عقول which are completely immaterial in this category. Now, those things which are actually coming with time, they are zamani or مرتبط با زمان, they are also of the two types. So beings are either farazaman or zamani, and those which are zamani are also divided two categories, ani wa zamani. Some of the things that have time limit, they happen at once, in a moment. They are ani, means they are not gradual. For example, if you have a needle, the point of this needle touch, for example, the paper, when you bring it down to touch the paper, would touch the paper at a moment. Before that moment, it didn't touch. After that moment, no motion has happened. It's still maybe there. How long that connection is taking to happen. I'm not talking about process before connection. I mean to heat the paper. How long? We say there is no question of time. It happens at once. Heating or disconnecting, if your hand is on the wall and you want to disconnect, or you want to hit the touch the wall, all of them may have a gradual process to get close to that point. But ittisal or adamul ittisal, they happen at once, in a moment. There's no graduality. So these are things which are called ani. But then there can be things which are zamani, in the sense that they have gradual process. For example, motion of the earth around itself. We call it al-harakatul wad'iyya, the motion of the earth around itself, or the motion of the earth around sun, which is harakat intiqali, which goes from one location to another location. So these have connection with time, but they are not ani, they are zamani, they are gradual. Okay? Common sense among people, which, or you can say, common opinion of people, is that when something is zamani, it means that it comes with a gradual process. For example, he says, از دیدگاه عرفی وقتی میگوییم ای زمانی و دارای طول عمر است، به این معناست که ای در هر یک از آنات مدت زمان عمرش موجود است. When public or common sense, when they say that something like A has gradual or has temporal time, zamani means temporal, has gradual property or characteristic and has a lifespan. So what they mean is that it exists in all the moments. One thing exists in all the moments. Mulla Sadra questions this, and he says we cannot have something fixed and then existing in all moments and being gradual. If something is gradual, in its essence also has to be gradual. So it's impossible to have a fixed, a static thing which goes from this time to the next time to the next time, which has graduality. So either something doesn't accept time, or if accepts time, admits time, according to Mulla Sadra, then it must itself be gradual in essence. This is very much connected to the discussion about substantial motion or al-harakatul juhariyya, which will be the next topic. This lesson is a long lesson, but it is about haraka. It prepares for the discussion about harakat jawhari. So for Mulla Sadra, we cannot have something which is fixed, which is static, and still is coming with zaman, with time. No. If it comes with time, it has to go through changes in its essence. The next discussion is to explain what we mean by change, تغییر. Philosophers say that, and this is relevant to discussion about time, they say we have two types of تغییر. We have many times mentioned this. We have gradual change, التغییر التدریجی, gradual change, and we have تغییر which takes place at once, دفعی, آنی. Haraka is gradual change. تغيير التدريجي من القوة إلى الفعل. This is haraka, a gradual process of change from potentiality to actuality. But if change happens at once, which means that maybe the substance of the thing is changing at once, this is called kawn و fasad, corruption and generation. Kawn means generation, fasad means corruption. Something takes a new form, a new surah, substantial surah, a suratul juhariyah, or loses that. So تغییر دفعی is not our concern when we talk about haraka and time, because this happens at once. از نظر فلاسفه پیشین, according to philosophers prior to Mulla Sadra, مشهورترین تغییرات آنی تغییر در جواهر است. The most famous change which happens at once are changes which are in substance, که کون و فساد نام دارد, which they call it generation and corruption. And this happens in chemical changes. For example, when one substance becomes another substance, if hydrogen becomes helium, then this happens at once. One substantial form is replaced by another one. This is called kawn و fasad. How long it takes for kawn و fasad? Zero. There's no time. It's at once. But if it is gradual, it takes time, and it is called haraka. The same thing that we said before about, for example, line, that line cannot be reduced to, for example, several points. Point, even if it is 1 million times added, it doesn't become line. Here also we have to remember that you cannot reduce haraka into many times of changes which happen at once, or many kawn و fasad. No. These are two different categories. Even million changes that happen at once, you can say instant changes, millions of them don't make haraka. Haraka has graduality and has time. حرکت یک تغییر است. It's a type of change, but we said there are two types of change, yeah? So, یک تغییر است, but which type of تغییر؟ اما طولمند و ممتد. But it has continuity. It's extended over time. نه مجموع شماری تغییر آنی یا مجموع تعدادی تغییر آنی و سکون متخلل. It's not that, haraka is endless changes at once or instant, or for example, a little movement, then a stop, a little movement, then a stop, a little movement, then a stop. No, if you stop, that haraka finished, maybe after this stop, a new haraka starts, but this is not one continuous haraka. Or it is not a stop after the stop. So you can say a stop and jump to the next stop and jump to the... No. Even if you have millions of stops, without gradual motion through them, you cannot have any haraka. Philosophers have considered two types of haraka, or تغییر تدریجی. One is what we call الحركة التوسطية. الحركة التوسطية means the thing which is moving is between the origin and destination, but you are not considering as a gradual process, just being between the two. In reality, this is not, haraka. And Mulla Sadra doesn't accept this as haraka, because haraka has to be gradual. Any way that you consider something without gradual process, then it's not haraka, even if you call it haraka. So he says, فلاسفه تصویری دیگر نیز از حرکت ارائه کردند. Philosophers have introduced another portrait of حرکت. It's not حرکت قطعیه, which is gradual. حرکت توسطیه, just between the 2 points. که در آن حرکت همانند امور مستمر گرچه زمانی است بر زمان منطبق نیست. Although حرکت is gradual and has time, but they try to disconnect it from time. They are to separate it from time. آن را حرکت توسطی نامیده اند. or in Arabic الحرکت التوسطیه. اما از سخنان ملا صدرا می توان استنباط کرد که او در نهایت به زمانی غیر منطبق بر زمان قائل نیست که به معنای انکار امر مستمر و نیز حرکت توسطی است. But Mulla Sadra doesn't accept. He says either it is haraka and has time and then it is gradual, or it doesn't have haraka and graduality. You cannot have, you call it on the one hand haraka, and on the other hand you say it's without time, without graduality. So therefore Sheikh Ubudia says we don't discuss that much about this type of haraka. Now, the next issue that we had in Bidaya also and other books is, what are the requirements of haraka? Philosophers say that there are 6 requirements, or 6 what they call lawazim, requirements of each haraka. One is zaman, time. Each haraka has time. The other is mabda, the departure point, the origin. The other is muntaha, the end, the destination. The fourth is fa'il. Fa'il means mover, muharrik. Fa'il, mover. The next is mawdu, subject, which is mutaharrik, the one which is moving. Fa'il is different from mawdu. Fa'il is the mover. Mawzu is the one which is moved. Vam masafa means the distance. What is the distance for this haraka? So every haraka has these 6. But maybe you say, what about an eternal, for example? If there is something eternal, then it doesn't have mabda. Or if it is everlasting, doesn't have end. So we say, we don't mean it has to have a specific point as mabda, as departure or origin, a specific point as end or destination, muntaha. It means that haraka always has a direction. Haraka has direction, moving from one side to the other side of a spectrum, but doesn't necessarily have to have a sharp beginning or sharp end. Then we start talking about these 6. So maybe I talk a little bit about zaman, and then the rest we can inshallah discuss in the next session. We already talked about zaman, but we want to continued as one of the 6 requirements of every haraka, because we said every haraka has 6 requirements. One of them is zaman. So what is the relation between time and haraka, or the role of time in haraka, in motion? According to Mulla Sadra, we said only al-harakatul qat'iyya is acceptable, not al-harakatul tawassutiyya. Qat'iyya means the distance is traveled. Yeah, step by step, gradually, the subject, the mutaharrik, is moving from one side to the other side. So every haraka in itself has a gradual process. Time also has gradual process. Are these two separate things? Is haraka or motion different from zaman or time? I say no. This is very fundamental question. Time is applicable to the same thing that haraka is applicable to. So the same continuity that we have, the same kam muttasil غیر قار الذات which we have, is time, as we said, but time is more specific. امتداد سیال is not specific, it does not have تعین, specification. And haraka is also something which has continuity, and it's also again gradual. It's غیر قار الذات, it expires. So when we apply time and haraka to the same thing, we realize that time is the measure of haraka. مقدار الحركة is time. Many people mistakenly think that time is independent, as if there is an independent eternal time, which we use it like a ruler, like a measure, like a miqyas in Arabic, by which we measure quantity of other harakat. For example, this harakat has taken 1 day, this one 1 month, this one 1 year, this one 100 years. But the reality is that time is not separate measure from haraka. Everything which has a haraka, the measure or the quantity for that haraka is its time. So everything has its own time. Yes, we have a common time that, for example, we look at the movement of the earth around itself and then around sun. Then we have, days and weeks and months and years, etc. But that is in reality time for the earth, not for us. But we compare our time with that time because that is something common, something that everyone can understand, everyone can measure. So it can be used as a point of reference. Otherwise, everything that moves, everything that has gradual change has its own time. You can then see the relation between times of different things with each other, but you can never impose the time of something on another thing. Everything has its own time. ممکن نیست حرکتی با امتدادی سیال یا زمانی خارج از خود و مستقل از آن ممتد و زماندار باشد. It's not possible that a motion which has continuity then becomes identifiable with a separate haraka or separate time. No, time of something else has nothing to do with this haraka. Every haraka has its own measure. There is no also such a thing that we have an eternal independent time. چنین نیست که یک زمان ازلی و ابدی یگانه داشته باشیم. Just we consider the time which is created by the movement of the earth, and as we use it as a measure, as a ruler, to compare other things with that. پس مشترک بودن آن به اعتبار معیار بودن آن است برای اندازه‌گیری زمان همه حرکات. So because we use it as a common measure, we say it is mushtarak, it's a common time. Otherwise, it's not common in the sense that it is time for me, it's time for you, it's time for that plant, for that flower, etc. No, our times are different. But we just use it as a common measure. Then, inshallah, in the next session, we will continue with the other 5 aspects of haraka. We just talked about zaman, we will talk about mabda, muntaha, muharrik, mawzu, and masafa, inshallah. Since I have to go somewhere, I stop here. If you have any questions, please write them down. Inshallah, next session we will inshallah try to address them. بإذن التماس دعا. خدا حافظ. بفرمایید. سلام علیکم.